Let's start with video 1. I had 5 blanks that, as I barrel trimmed, I had gotten a little too aggressive and left some brass sticking out at the end of each of the blanks. I started by using a file and filing off that piece of brass. Then I moved to a Dremel tool with a small stone and ground the brass down. As you take a look at these pins, you can see there are no gaps at the cap, the nib, or the center ring. Each one of them turned out very nice, and I'm very happy with how they look. You might also remember from the first video that I had a couple of colored pencil blanks that had lost their pencil leads. And what I did is I attempted to glue them back in with CA glue, and on this particular blank, the lead popped back out on me and went flying across the shop, and I never found it. Steve Twiddell suggested using a crayon and melting crayon into the opening left by the lead, and I did that, and you'll notice I did have a little bit of staining around the pen, but overall I'm happy with how it turned out, and I think it made a beautiful pen. The second blank that required gluing the lead pieces back in turned perfectly and made a really nice modified slimline pen. You might remember from Pen Blank Fixes 2, I had a couple of blanks that chipped out really bad at the end, and I lost the pieces. I wasn't able to replace them. So what I did is I took them to the bandsaw and I shortened the blanks. So if you take a look at this, you can tell the blank on the right is about 1/4 of an inch shorter than the blank on the left. So what I do is I add a second trim ring to the transmission, which will lengthen the pen back out to its normal length. And plus it looks kind of cool too. So this is a great way to fix a pen that is damaged and ends up being too short to produce a normal looking pen. You may also remember these 2 pens from Pen Blank Fixes video 2. What happened here is, as I was turning the pens, I lost chunks from the ends of the barrels on both the top and the bottom barrel on this pen. The second pen I lost or had terrible tear out on the ends of both blanks. So what I did is I took a parting tool, I simply parted it off nice and square, cleaned all of the excess wood off of the tube, and glued additional wood onto the ends of the blank, and then turned them down to produce 2 incredibly beautiful pens. Video 3 of my Blank Fixes video series showed this particular blank. It's a herringbone blank done with mahogany and maple. And the issue I was having is because my wood is on a 45-degree angle, as I was barrel trimming, it was just tearing out huge chunks. I ended up taking this over to my belt sander, sanding it flat, and then I was able to get it onto the lathe and turn it into what I think is one of the most beautiful seam rippers I've ever made. In the same sequence that I showed this particular seam ripper, I had a seam ripper made from spalted box elder, and it had holes in it. It was very soft, had a lot of holes in it, and I also turned it rather close to the tube. I attempted to use the crayon, the melted crayon method, to repair the blank, and that did not work. So what happened is I ended up turning all of the wood off of the barrel and replacing it with a piece of Purple Heart, and I turned it into a gorgeous seam ripper. I do not have that seam ripper. I sold it. It is already gone. But what I'm going to do is, for a few seconds here, I'm going to pop up a photo of that seam ripper. And the last blank I dealt with in that video is this piece of palm. And what I did, I used a little Minwax wood hardener. This palm, as I was turning it, even with a very sharp skew, chunks were actually coming out of it because it's such soft wood. So I soaked it for a couple of days in some Minwax wood hardener, and it absorbed a large amount of the wood hardener. Once it dried, I was able to turn it into a gorgeous seam ripper. In my 4th Blank Fixes video, I was working on the Purple Heart seam ripper that I showed you from video 3, and you might remember I had some haze in the glue after I polished the blank, and I ended up sanding that blank down and refinishing it and repolishing it to get that haze out. And it actually worked out very well. It turned out beautiful, and the lady that I sent it to absolutely loves it. I also worked on this particular burl, as well as this English U. Now, I did not finish the English U because as I was turning it, you can see I had another problem. And I've run out of time, so I haven't fixed this blank. Most likely what I'll end up doing is turning a little bit off at the end and replacing it with another piece of wood. But my concern is I've got a knot there and I've got a knot there. So I'm going to have to be extremely careful. This will probably warrant a separate video because I think it's going to be an extremely tricky turn. This particular pin, and I already showed it once, had the same issue as this pin. The tubes, as I was inserting them, did not go all the way in. So what I had to do was add tubes to the opposite end and then cut the tubes off and trim and sand the blanks down to the proper size. I used calipers to ensure I got the proper length, and I was able to assemble the pin, and it works beautifully. And I think the burl is just out of this world gorgeous. In the fifth and final pin fixes video, I was turning some beautiful pecan, and it had a number of holes in it. And what I did is I fixed those holes with some Pearl X silver powder. I think the pins turned out fantastic. This one's a pencil, and this one is a pen. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I also hope you enjoyed seeing the pins that I had issues with actually as finished pins. I had a great time making those 5 videos. You just never know what type of a problem is going to come up when you're making pins, and I kind of enjoy, I don't like having problems, but when I do have a problem, I kind of enjoy the challenge of trying to figure out how to correct that problem. I absolutely hate throwing a blank away. And even if you screw up trying to repair it, you were probably going to throw it away anyway, so it gives you a chance to learn something. And you never know, you may actually, your fix may work, and you may end up with a pin that looks better than what you started with. So don't give up on your pins. Sometimes if you're having an issue, lay it aside for a couple days. Think about it. Get an idea of what you want to do, then come back and give it a try. Trust me, you'll be glad you did, because you're going to learn an awful lot about how to take something that is going to the burn pile and turn it into something beautiful that somebody's going to love to have. I would like to thank you for joining me for this video. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening, everybody.